Hans was a very rich man who used to be living in a small German town. He harassed people often at a local synagogue, throwing banana peels inside the place to insult the rabbi. He often participated in pro-Palestinian orotests, denying he is a Jew hater as an excuse for his crimes. He had a friend called Rudolf who helped him against the Jews of the town. One night, he returns home tired after putting on loud music inside the synagogue with a JBL speaker. He ate dinner with his wife before he went to his room and slept there in his bed. Suddenly, Hans hears footsteps which sound very ghastly and scary. He woke up and witnessed as the ghost of Rudolf stood right in front of him, tied with spooky and gigantic chains. Hans was surprised. He couldn't believe what he's seen.
Get out of my house!
Hans asks if it's another trick. The ghost warned Hans that if he doesn't change his attitude towards Jewish people and their state of Israel, he will burn in hell like red meat. Hans was scared. The ghost told Hans that 3 spirits will visit him and teach him the meaning of anti-Semitism and hate towards righteous people whom he mocked for fun. Hans starts crying as he begs not to be damned in hell. Rudolf's ghost informed Hans that it all depends on him. Hans was relieved when the ghost of Rudolf faded away. He couldn't sleep through the night, waiting to see if the first ghost comes. The next day, Hans was very tired. He was fired from work for being mean to a Jewish family who came as customers to the shop he worked in. As night came, he had dinner with his wife and 2 children the following night, which was one night before Yom Kippur Eve. He had a fight with his wife because he had wasted his money on fancy items and anti-Jewish propaganda videos instead of spending it on food or necessary stuff for his own family. The angered wife leaves the house with the 2 kids, wishing he would be a Jew and commit good deeds in the name of her only God. Hans laughs, but his ego is short-lived. As all the lights in the house switch off, a spiritual figure, looking like a fiery Jewish artist coming back from the dead, appears within flames. The figure asks Hans if he's frightened. Hans is too scared to answer, and the spirit tells him he should be frightened in the presence of the 3 spirits. The figure introduces himself as the ghost of Kippur Past, tasked to show Hans what he did wrong to Jews in his entire life and to teach him the history of Zionism. As a small light in the room switches on, the spirit shows Hans hallucinations of the synagogues he visited, showing how in 2 synagogues he disturbed the rabbi purposely to annoy the Jewish people while they were praying, and one synagogue in which he even threw stones towards a bunch of Jewish kids wearing a kippah, which is what the Jews put on their heads. Suddenly, the room goes dark again, and a tiny, fiery figure of him and his wife both appear in the room, walking happily. Suddenly, they are seen arguing after Hans put a poster on his wall with the word, "Adolf Hitler was right," before his wife cried. The spirit asks Hans if he feels sadness or guilt. Hans says, "Maybe a little bit." The ghost of the Kippur then smiles and says, "Perhaps this shall convince you, Hans." The spirit shows Hans how Israel was born in 1948, despite the Arabs trying to kill all Jews in the common ground. The ghost asks Hans what he would do if someone stole his home by killing his family. Hans laughed. The ghost despised Hans's reaction, but took a deep breath and wished him good luck with the next spirit who shall come at midnight to a quiet corner near the city center, telling Hans he hopes the matter will be taken more seriously before judgment comes. Walks in the quiet city at night, heading towards the city center while nobody's around the area. He finds a corner once he reaches the center of the city. Hans finds out the corner is opposite a synagogue. Suddenly, Hans hears a voice asking him if he's ever heard a Jewish prayer while closing his eyes. Hans turned around, as then a Jewish spirit looking like a drunk author with a paper book in his right hand and a cup of fresh wine in his left. The ghost offers Hans a drink, which he kindly refuses to take. The spirit introduces himself as the ghost of Kippur present and tells Hans to come with him into the synagogue. The two enter, but nobody is there. The spirit told Hans to look at the pictures and symbols on the wall representing Jewish beliefs. The spirit tells Hans that a Jew must love his neighbor like himself, as said in the famous quote, "Ve'ahavta lereaka kamocha." Hans starts crying that he wants to come back in time to the past and see with his own eyes the beauty of the Jewish prayer. The spirit of the present uses magic to light up the synagogue with much more light and joy, magically allowing the sounds of many prayers to echo and enter Hans's ears. The spirit asks Hans if he hears it, to which Hans, in fear, yet a strange sense of tragic joy, answers, yes. The spirit tells him that the prayer should not just enter someone's ears, but also someone's heart. After that, the light fades away into shadows. Two figures of little Christian teenage juveniles appear. The two boys which the spirit shows Hans are called Want and Ignorance. The spirit breathes deeply and warns Hans in a scarier tone. Beware. They are the very manifestation of all anti-Semitism the humans have. The first boy, named Want, takes a knife out of his pocket, asking, "Are there any Jews left to consume?" The second one, named Ignorance, in the form of a protester in the streets of New York, asks, "Are there no Jews to blame for occupation of lands?" Hans was shocked and full of tears running out of his eyes like two waterfalls of sadness. Hans, while still crying and feeling guilt and shock, asks the spirit for mercy. The ghost of the present causes everything to fade away, but the synagogue then crumbles into ashes. When Hans exits with the spirit and looks backwards, the synagogue is all seen burnt. The spirit explains that Hans had a change in heart, but that with all his hatred towards Jews still merely changed for the better good, the synagogue had to burn in the name of Elohim, the Jewish God, and the only one ruling everything in the universe's existence. The spirit directed Hans to walk further into the city and follow the darkest routes he finds, so the ghost of Kippur's future, who is called the Angel of Death, or Malach HaMavet, will be able to save or punish his soul during judgment. As the darkness grew and the city lights slowly turned off, Hans walked in the empty alleys of the darkened city. The atmosphere was darker than ever, and Hans walked slowly as he was frightened. Out of the darkness came a hooded, shadowy figure who looks like the Grim Reaper and holds a scythe in his hand. The extremely frightened and emotional Hans asks him while stuttering out of fear, "Are you the ghost of what may come during this Yom Kippur? I beg of you, have some mercy." The ghost of the future has entered the wall nearby, as inside the wall, shadowy figures appeared. Hans saw the shadows in human-like shapes. The shadow figures started celebrating as the wall was lightened by some yellow light. Hans was happy, asking the ghost of the future if he's sure that's the clear and bright future he's going to enjoy once more. Suddenly, the ghost pointed his finger onto another wall, in which the shadowy figures of men hold his coffin and dump it into the graveyard. His wife cries, wanting to have enough money to travel to Israel by next year. With both shocking fear and a genuinely softened heart, Hans asks if that's the future he will get. Suddenly, the ghost magically teleports him to the graveyard, pointing towards an empty tombstone. A shocked and frightened Hans cries that he will never be the anti-Semite he was, and that he will respect all Jews and their culture and traditions, or he has one last chance. The Reaper points his skeletal finger onto the tombstone as the name Hans and the date of his death are revealed to be written on the stone magically. The cause of death is revealed as it's written like this: died from anti-Semitism and hate killed him. The Grim Reaper was about to smash and behead Hans with his scythe, but when the scythe was just a centimeter away from harm, Hans found himself waking up in his own bed. Feeling relief and having a change in his heart, he sits down and writes a love letter to his wife. He runs on the empty streets looking for her, and yet the journey will be continued.